Sister made fun of my simple engagement ring at my party, so I played a video of her confessing to cheating. Now her fiancé left and my parents decided to cut me off. I, 27F, have always known I lived in my sister Sarah's, 29F, shadow. It's been like that for as long as I can remember. Growing up in suburban Massachusetts, Sarah was the perfect daughter, straight A's, cheerleading captain, and homecoming queen. My parents, both successful attorneys, were her biggest fans. They constantly praised her accomplishments, making sure I knew that Sarah was the one going places. She went on to work in marketing in Boston, and every milestone she reached was celebrated like she had won an Olympic gold medal. I wasn't like that. I wasn't the star of the family, and I learned early on that my accomplishments graduating from nursing school and becoming a pediatric nurse were good but not good enough. Still, I loved what I did, even if it didn't bring the kind of attention Sarah got. I loved helping children and knowing that my work made a real difference. But it didn't matter how fulfilling it was for me. To my parents, I'd always be the other or the lesser daughter, the one who didn't quite measure up. Things started to change for me 2 years ago when I met James. He's a pediatric oncologist, and we connected during my residency. We clicked instantly. James is kind and patient, and shares my passion for helping children. Last month, he proposed to me during a weekend trip to Cape Cod. It was perfect. The ring he gave me wasn't flashy, far from it. It was an heirloom from his grandmother, simple but filled with sentimental value. I loved it. Meanwhile, Sarah had been dating Marcus, a finance executive, for 4 years. For the past 2 years, she had been dropping hints about marriage. She would show our mom different engagement ring designs and not so subtly mention that Marcus was looking at rings. Everyone in our family, including Sarah, thought she would be the first to get married. After all, she had always been the golden child, and I think she believed marriage was just another box she'd check off after reaching certain career milestones. When James and I announced our engagement, Sarah's reaction was strange. She congratulated us but quickly shifted the conversation to her recent promotion as if our big news wasn't important. Still, I figured she was just surprised. Maybe she hadn't expected me to get engaged first. My parents, however, seemed thrilled and even offered to host an engagement party at their house. I was excited and hopeful that maybe this party could be a moment where the weird tension between Sarah and me would dissolve. The engagement party was last weekend, and I'll never forget what happened. At first, things were going well. Friends, family, and some of James's colleagues came to celebrate. Sarah seemed like she was finally warming up to the idea of me getting married first. She made polite small talk, complimented the decorations, and even asked about our wedding plans. But as the evening went on, things changed. Sarah had been drinking a lot more than usual and her mood shifted. She started making passive-aggressive comments, particularly about my engagement ring. At one point, in front of a group of people, she said, "Oh, I guess some people don't mind a modest ring as long as they're engaged. I mean, whatever makes you happy, right?" It was a cheap shot, and it hurt, but I tried to ignore it. The ring meant the world to me because of its history, and I wasn't about to let her ruin that. Things escalated during the toasts. Sarah took the microphone to give her speech, and at first, it seemed like she was just going to congratulate James and me. But then, her tone changed. She started talking about how surprising it was that I was getting married first, saying it was unexpected because I had always taken my time with things. The room got quiet, and people were starting to look uncomfortable. Then she said it, "I guess when you're a low-value woman, you have to rush into marriage. I mean, who else would marry a doctor who spends more time with sick kids than his own fiancé?" I was humiliated. The entire room was staring at me, and I could feel James beside me, seething with anger. Marcus looked like he wanted to disappear. Sarah just stood there, smirking as if she had won some twisted competition. That's when I snapped. See, 2 months earlier, Sarah's ex-boyfriend from college had reached out to me. He had heard through mutual friends that I was getting engaged and wanted to catch up. During our conversation, he shared a video with me that completely changed how I saw my sister. In the video, Sarah, visibly drunk, admitted to cheating on him with his best friend and stealing money from their shared apartment fund to buy designer clothes. It was filmed 6 years ago, and I never planned to do anything with it. But as I stood there, feeling completely torn down by my own sister at what was supposed to be my celebration, I couldn't hold back. I connected my phone to the Bluetooth speakers and played the video. The room went silent as Sarah's voice filled the space, confessing to her infidelity and theft. You could hear a pin drop. Marcus, who had been standing off to the side, quietly walked out of the room without saying a word. Sarah, pale and in shock, burst into tears and ran out as well. My parents were stunned. The party ended shortly after that. My parents pulled me aside, furious. They accused me of humiliating Sarah and ruining her life. They demanded to know why I had done something so cruel and told me that I had crossed a line. My dad said I had embarrassed our family, and my mom insisted I apologize to Sarah immediately. When I refused, they told me they wouldn't support me or attend my wedding unless I publicly apologized to her. Since then, everything has spiraled out of control. Sarah has been posting vague, melodramatic messages on social media about betrayal and toxic family members. My inbox has been flooded with messages from relatives, some supportive, others accusing me of being vindictive and petty. It's become clear that Sarah is spinning the story to make herself the victim, and I'm being painted as the villain. My parents are fully on her side and won't speak to me until I apologize. James has been my rock throughout all of this. He understands why I did what I did, and while he supports me, he's also worried about the toll this is taking on my relationship with my family. We should be planning our wedding, but instead, I'm dealing with the fallout from this massive family rift. I feel conflicted. Part of me knows that Sarah deserves to be held accountable for her actions. She's gotten away with so much over the years because everyone enabled her behavior. But another part of me wonders if I went too far. I never wanted to destroy my relationship with my parents, but now it feels like I might have done just that. I've been trying to figure out where to go from here. James and I are still planning our wedding, though it's hard to feel excited about it with everything going on. We're supposed to be celebrating our engagement, but instead, I'm left picking up the pieces of a family that feels irreparably broken. My parents have made it clear that if I don't apologize, they won't be a part of my wedding or my life, it seems. But how can I apologize when I know Sarah's behavior is the real issue? How can I sweep everything under the rug and pretend that she hasn't hurt so many people, including me? Sarah's been silent since the party, except for the social media posts. She hasn't reached out to me directly, and I doubt she will. She's never been one to admit when she's wrong, and I'm starting to wonder if she ever will. Marcus hasn't spoken to her since the party, according to mutual friends, and I have no idea what's going to happen with their relationship. My parents, of course, are trying to spin it like I'm the one who's ruined everything. They keep saying that family is supposed to come first, but how can I put family first when they're not even willing to see my side of things? At this point, I'm not sure what the future holds. James and I are moving forward with our wedding plans, but it feels like there's this huge cloud hanging over everything. I love my parents, and it breaks my heart that they've chosen to side with Sarah, but I can't apologize for standing up for myself. I can't pretend that what she did was okay. Maybe in time, they'll come around. Or maybe they won't. All I know is that I have to focus on what's best for me and James now. We deserve to start our life together without this drama hanging over our heads. I just wish it didn't have to be this way. But sometimes, you have to stand up for yourself, even if it means losing the people you thought would always be there for you. Update 1. Thank you all for the overwhelming support and advice. This whole mess has been spiraling out of control over the past few days, and I wanted to give an update on everything that's happened since the engagement party. Yesterday, I got a call from Marcus. I wasn't expecting it, especially after everything that went down, but I was curious about what he had to say. Marcus sounded calm but tired, like he'd been thinking a lot. He told me that Sarah's behavior at the party was a huge wake-up call for him. He'd been having doubts about their relationship for a while but hadn't felt like he had enough clarity or proof to act on them. The video was the final straw. Apparently, Sarah had been pushing him toward marriage for some time. She'd drop hints constantly, talk about wedding plans, and even pressure him to look at engagement rings. But at the same time, she wasn't exactly acting like someone ready for commitment. Marcus shared that she had been flirting with his colleagues at work events, and while it never escalated into anything serious, it made him uncomfortable. He had tried to bring it up with her, but she always brushed it off as harmless fun or accused him of being insecure. The fact that she didn't see anything wrong with it was a red flag for him, and after the party, he realized it was time to walk away. Marcus told me he had broken up with Sarah and had already moved out of their apartment. He seemed relieved, even though it was clear he was still processing everything. He admitted that he'd had a nagging feeling that things weren't right for a while, but it wasn't until the video and Sarah's public meltdown that he finally accepted the truth. He thanked me for exposing what kind of person Sarah really was, saying that it gave him the clarity to end a relationship that wasn't working. He seemed at peace with his decision, and honestly, I was glad for him. But while Marcus was moving forward, my parents were doing the opposite. My mom called later that day, and the conversation didn't go well. She told me that Sarah had been crying herself to sleep and had to take time off work because of anxiety. According to Mom, Sarah was devastated, and it was all because of me. They were furious that I had humiliated her in front of everyone, and now they expected not only a public apology but also for me to help rebuild Sarah's reputation. Mom even suggested that I tell everyone the video was taken out of context, that Sarah hadn't really meant what she said, and that it was just a mistake from her younger years. She wanted me to downplay the whole thing as if it were just a misunderstanding. But there was no way I was going to lie to protect Sarah, not after everything she had done. It's beyond frustrating that my parents are still so focused on protecting Sarah's image, refusing to acknowledge her role in the situation. They're still treating her like the golden child who can do no wrong, while I'm expected to clean up the mess. To make matters worse, Sarah's ex from college, the one from the video, reached out to me after hearing about what happened through mutual friends. He was appalled by Sarah's attempts to cover it up. Apparently, she had contacted him, begging him to claim that the video was fake. He refused, of course, and told me he stands by what he said in the video. He even offered to talk to my parents on my behalf to set the record straight, though I doubt it would make a difference. My parents are so deep in denial that I don't think anything could change their minds right now. During all this chaos, James and I have decided to move forward with our wedding plans. We found a beautiful venue on the North Shore for next spring. It's everything I've always dreamed of: charming, intimate, and perfect for the kind of celebration we want. I've also made a decision that was really hard but feels right given the circumstances. I've asked my best friend to be my maid of honor instead of Sarah. That choice wasn't easy, but after everything that's happened, I don't feel like I can trust Sarah to be by my side on such an important day. I need people around me who truly support me, and right now, that's not her. Some of our relatives have already confirmed that they'll attend the wedding, even if my parents stick to their boycott. That's been a huge relief because, honestly, I was terrified that I'd end up with an empty guest list. James's parents have also been incredibly supportive. They've even offered to help with planning if my parents continue to hold out. It's been a comfort to know that we have people in our corner, even if my own parents aren't among them. Despite all of this, the emotional toll is starting to weigh heavily on me. I've been so torn between standing up for myself and the sadness of potentially losing my family. James has been my rock through everything, but even he can see how much it's affecting me. I've decided to start seeing a therapist to help me work through everything. My first appointment is tomorrow, and I'm hopeful it will help me sort out my feelings. I don't regret standing up to Sarah. She's gotten away with too much for too long, and it was time someone held her accountable for her actions. But the thought of a long-term estrangement from my parents is hard to bear. I always imagined them being there for my wedding, walking me down the aisle, sharing in the joy of the day. Now, that image feels like it's slipping away, and I'm trying to come to terms with that. James has suggested eloping to avoid all the drama, and while I understand where he's coming from, I'm not ready for that. I've always dreamed of having a traditional wedding with my family by my side, and part of me is still holding out hope that they'll come around. But at the same time, I'm starting to realize that I need to focus on what makes me happy, not on living up to the expectations of a family that refuses to see reason. For now, I'm taking things one day at a time. I'm moving forward with the wedding plans, leaning on the people who are supporting me, and trying to process everything that's happened. It's not easy, and the path ahead feels uncertain, but I'm determined to find my own way through this. Even if it means walking down the aisle without my parents, I know that I have James by my side, and that's what matters most. Update 2. Things have escalated far beyond what I ever could have imagined. A few days ago, Sarah's ex-boyfriend's wife found out that Sarah had been reaching out to him, trying to convince him to deny the authenticity of the video. Apparently, Sarah had been persistent, practically begging him to lie and say the video wasn't real. But what really shocked me was what came next. Sarah had gone as far as to offer to make it worth his while if he agreed to help cover up her lies. Well, the wife wasn't having any of it. She wasn't about to let Sarah manipulate her husband. Instead of keeping quiet, she took screenshots of Sarah's messages and shared them in our extended family's group chat. It was a bombshell. The chat exploded into chaos as family members read Sarah's desperate attempts to cover up her past. The worst part was seeing just how far Sarah was willing to go to protect herself, with no regard for anyone else. As the messages circulated, everyone was stunned. My aunt, who's always been one of the more level-headed and calm people in the family, finally spoke up. She revealed that she had witnessed Sarah's manipulative behavior for years but had chosen to keep quiet to avoid family drama. Apparently, Sarah had been pulling stunts like this for a long time. My aunt shared that Sarah had taken credit for other people's achievements in the family and even spread rumors about cousins who outshined her in school or work. It was eye-opening to see just how many family members had stories about Sarah's manipulations. I'd always known she was favored by my parents, but I had no idea how deeply this pattern ran. People shared story after story about Sarah's selfishness and entitlement, yet no one had ever dared to confront her directly. It was like my parents had set the standard that Sarah was untouchable, and everyone followed suit to avoid rocking the boat. Even after this revelation, my parents still refused to acknowledge what Sarah had done. Instead, they doubled down on their position. A couple of days after the screenshots came out, my parents finally reached out to me again. But instead of the apology or understanding I was hoping for, they hit me with an ultimatum. They told me that if I didn't publicly apologize to Sarah, they would remove me from their will. It was like a punch to the gut. As if that wasn't enough, they demanded that I make a public statement saying the video was misleading and agree to postpone my wedding until Sarah had had time to find happiness again. I just don't know what to say. How could they not see what was really going on? They were so wrapped up in protecting Sarah that they'd completely lost sight of reality. They didn't care about how she had humiliated me at my own engagement party, or about the fact that she'd tried to manipulate her ex into lying for her. All they cared about was making sure Sarah's reputation wasn't damaged. It was like they were blind to the truth, refusing to see their precious golden child for who she really was. James has been amazing. He's been nothing but supportive, even though I can tell the situation is wearing on him, too. His colleagues at the hospital have been great as well. In fact, several of them decided to withdraw from a medical conference where Sarah's marketing firm was handling the PR. They didn't want to be involved with anything associated with Sarah after hearing what happened. Apparently, this decision caused problems for her at work, and now she's accusing me of sabotaging her career. The irony is, I hadn't even spoken to anyone at her firm. But of course, in Sarah's mind, everything bad that happens to her is somehow my fault. Meanwhile, Sarah has been playing the victim online. She's been posting more cryptic messages about family betrayal and how people should rise above pettiness. It's clear she's enjoying the attention, framing herself as the wrong party in all of this. She still hasn't reached out to me directly, and I doubt she ever will. She's too busy spinning the narrative that I'm the villain to even consider taking responsibility for her actions. I had a long conversation with my dad, hoping we could finally talk things through. But it was heartbreaking. He told me that family is everything, and by refusing to apologize, I was the one tearing our family apart. He went as far as to say that Sarah had always been there for me and that I was repaying her by ruining her reputation and making her look bad in front of everyone. It felt like I was being gaslighted. No one was acknowledging the hurt Sarah had caused me. No one was standing up for me. Instead, it was like they expected me to sweep everything under the rug, to apologize, and move on for the sake of keeping the peace. The conversation left me feeling even more conflicted than before. Part of me wanted to give in just to end the drama, but another part of me knew that doing so would only validate Sarah's behavior and reinforce the idea that she could do no wrong. I couldn't bring myself to apologize for something that wasn't my fault, not after everything she had done. James and I should be focusing on our wedding and moving forward with our lives, but instead, we're stuck in this never-ending cycle of drama with my family. It's exhausting, and it's becoming increasingly clear to me that no matter what I do, I might never get the support from my parents that I've always wanted. The pressure to fix things with Sarah is crushing, but at this point, I'm starting to question whether it's even worth it. What's the point of trying to rebuild a relationship with someone who doesn't respect me? What's the point of trying to make peace with parents who refuse to see reason? I've spent so much of my life trying to live up to my parents' expectations, trying to be the good daughter even in Sarah's shadow. But now, I'm realizing that maybe it's time to let go of that. As much as it hurts to think about losing my parents, I can't keep sacrificing my own happiness to keep the peace. For now, I'm trying to take things day by day. I'm continuing to see my therapist to work through everything. I'm still holding out hope that my parents will come around, but I'm also preparing myself for the possibility that they won't. And if that's the case, I'll have to make peace with it and move on. At the end of the day, I deserve to be happy, even if it means leaving some people behind. Update 3, it's been a few more days, and I've made a decision. After countless conversations with James and some deep soul searching, I've realized I cannot apologize to Sarah. I've spent so much time weighing the consequences, but in the end, apologizing would mean going against everything I believe in. It would be condoning her behavior, and I can't do that anymore. I've been part of this dysfunctional cycle for too long, and it's time to break free. My parents have made it crystal clear that they won't attend the wedding unless I publicly apologize to Sarah. Part of me was still hoping they would come around, that they would see reason and realize how unfair and hurtful their demands are. But as much as it breaks my heart, I've decided to move forward without them. I can't keep sacrificing my own happiness and well-being to maintain a fragile peace that was never truly there in the first place. James and I have restructured our wedding plans to reflect this new reality. Originally, I had envisioned a large, traditional wedding, the kind where all of my family would gather together, celebrating our love in a grand way. But given everything that's happened, we've decided to scale back. Instead of a big event, we're opting for a smaller, more intimate ceremony. It will be just close friends and James's family, who have been nothing but supportive throughout this entire ordeal. I won't lie, it's not what I originally wanted. I grew up imagining my wedding as a day where both my parents would walk me down the aisle, surrounded by loved ones from both sides of the family. Letting go of that dream hasn't been easy. But I've realized that continuing to chase after their approval, when they've made their priorities so painfully clear, is futile. They've chosen to stand by Sarah, to protect and enable her behavior at my expense, and I'm done trying to earn their support. As for Sarah, I'm done trying to fix things with her. This whole situation has made me see her in a new light, and I've finally accepted who she really is. For years, I let her manipulations drag me down. I excused her behavior because that's what everyone in the family did, it was always just Sarah being Sarah. But I can't keep living like that. I deserve better than to be caught up in her endless drama, and I've realized that the only way to truly move on is to let go of her completely. The decision to cut ties with Sarah and my parents hasn't been easy, and the pain of that loss is still raw. But something unexpected happened that gave me a little bit of peace. A few days ago, my grandmother, my dad's mom, reached out to me. She invited me over for tea, and we had a long, heartfelt conversation. My grandmother has always been a quiet presence in the family, watching everything unfold from the sidelines. She's never been one to get involved in the family drama, but this time, she decided to step in. During our conversation, she told me that she supported me. Hearing those words felt like a lifeline in the middle of all this chaos. She admitted that while she couldn't change my parents' minds or their decision to stand by Sarah, she wanted me to know that she understood where I was coming from. She told me she was proud of me for standing up for myself, for refusing to apologize when I had done nothing wrong. Having someone in my family validate my feelings after weeks of feeling like I was screaming into the void was overwhelming in the best possible way. The visit with my grandmother gave me some clarity. It reminded me that not everyone in my family is blind to Sarah's behavior or dismissive of my feelings. Knowing that at least one person in my family understands and supports me means more than I can put into words. It doesn't fix everything, but it helps me feel less alone in this battle. The last few weeks have been some of the hardest of my life, but I'm starting to learn that sometimes, the only way to truly move forward is to let go. Letting go of the idea that my parents will ever change and that Sarah will ever take responsibility for her actions. And most importantly, letting go of the need for my family's approval to feel whole. James and I are excited about this next chapter of our lives. The wedding, even though smaller and different from what I once dreamed, will still be a celebration of our love and commitment to each other. It's not the fairy tale ending I once hoped for, but in many ways, it feels like the beginning of something much stronger. I've also made the decision to continue therapy. I have realized that I have some issues of my own and I could really use some professional help. This journey isn't over, and I know that I will have to face my parents and Sarah again. But for the first time in a long time, I feel like I'm on the right path. Thank you all for your support and advice throughout this ordeal, it's meant the world to me. I'm ready to move forward, focusing on my happiness, my relationship with James, and the future we're building together.